How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Rock Garden. My name's Steve Rock from Abomination Films, and today we're going to be doing our taxes. You know, it's the scariest time of year, besides Halloween, tax time. So first you're going to take out your paperwork. You want to get your W-2s, and then you also want to get out your ledger, just so that way you can keep track of all your deductions. And April Fools, taxes. You think I know anything about taxes? This is all just old paperwork from legal stuff. But I did want to talk about something that is very important in your garden, and that is your journal. So this is what I use. A lot of people use an app. A lot of people use a lot of other things as far as spreadsheets and computer programs. I actually like to just use a simple notebook for most of my stuff. So in here, I've got today's date. I've got what I'm planning to plant, also how many I'm planning to plant. And then as time goes on, I can go in here and make notes about when I fertilized, when I've watered, any trouble I've seen. If for some reason one batch of a plant didn't do well and I had to, go ahead and compost it or something, that's all stuff I keep track of here in my journal. It's one of the most important things and one of the least talked about things that a gardener can use. And it's especially important during your seed starting time. So that's what today's video is mostly going to be about, is starting your seeds. We're going to go over the double cup method. That's something I use for my tomatoes and my peppers specifically. I also have an odd way to use it for onions. I'll show you that as we go. Go ahead. Hi everybody, welcome to Not the Garden. We're actually going to be starting our seeds inside, and this happens to be the same set that we shot our ghost film insurance in. It's a little spooky in here. Wow. So, of course, we have pneumatics rigged up throughout the whole place. We're going to show you that in just a moment. I told you we would show you some special effects while we're working on this stuff. But we are going to be taking it seriously today and setting up seeds inside. We'll be moving on to that shortly. Push it back out. All right, so now that we've had some fun with our special effects, I wanted to show you how you're going to start your seedlings, or at least how I start my seedlings. I wanted to talk specifically about tomatoes before we begin. So all of my tomatoes are indeterminate type. There are two different types of tomatoes. So there's determinate and indeterminate. What the hell does that mean? Well, determinate means it's a determined height that it's going to reach, and it's going to start branching out. You don't want to prune those ones because they're going to give as much fruit as they can about one small season. You might get a few extra growings, but usually you're going to get almost all of your tomatoes from those plants in one shot. They also grow at a specific amount of time and a specific amount of space, and it's usually much smaller than an indeterminate tomato. And an indeterminate tomato is one that will grow indeterminately. What does that mean? Well, they grow like vines. So as long as you keep on letting them grow up the vine, they'll get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And as they go up, they're going to put off more fruit along their main stem. We're going to go from the seed stage into the double cup method, and then to the string trellis once it gets into the garden. And I'll show you how you can keep wrapping it up. Now, I've never had them overgrow my trellis because I do have a trick for that too, where I add a little bit of extra string to the top. So it does start to droop a little bit by the end of the year because you've added a little extra string. And I know that a lot of other people will move hooks down a path. I found that that's not really useful for me because my growing season is so short that I'm never going to really move it too many hooks to be worth it. So instead, I just let a little bit of string out And that gives a little bit of extra room for final part of the season growth. And last year I was able to keep getting fresh tomatoes off of that plant right into November, which is unheard of. And that's a big part of it, I think, was starting it off with this method where you're going to start your tomatoes, they're going to get stronger and stronger and stronger, and as they get bigger, you're going to add more soil, you're going to clip off those bottom leaves, it'll keep on getting more and more roots, and then when it goes out to the garden, it'll be a nice big muscle-bound tomato plant ready to go. Basically, those tomatoes will hit the ground and be like, "Whoa, who ordered the beefsteak?" So that's why I do it, is just to get a jump start on the season, get things moving as quickly and as best as possible. Puppy girl, I don't think the camera can see you, but you're here. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the double cup method. That's going to be where you have 2 cups. The bottom one you keep entirely normal. You don't do anything special to it. You just keep it as is. I wrote San Marzano on it because that's what I'm going to plant in it, is a San Marzano tomato. The other cup, I hope you can see it, you cut 3 triangles into the cup. Now the goal is, as you're growing this, to keep the water level about halfway up your triangle in this cup. That lets the soil be able to breathe, and it also lets there always be enough water to wick up into the soil to keep everything moist. And at the bottom, because you want to make a little bit of an airspace, also you want to have a reservoir to be able to keep having water in it, you're going to put something in there. Now, I'm using, a lot of cases, these plastic gems because I have a bunch of them left over from a little thing we did for our short film contest. So I'm going to drop one in there, and then my cup, and I'm going to fill the cup full of soil, and then put water in it, and just make sure that every day I'm checking to see what the water is, and if I can see the level and make sure that it stays, right about halfway up the triangles all the way around, then I know that I'm in good shape, and I just have to keep that level, check it once in the morning, once at night. Just always make sure that the water stays in a good amount in the cup. You really should use a colored cup. A red one is great. Any other color is fine. They come in everything from purple to black to teal to orange, blue, all sorts of colors. I wouldn't suggest using either white or clear because in those cases, it doesn't block as much sunlight coming in. And you're going to be having roots growing inside this. I made that mistake last year where I used really cheap ones that were clear, and it was kind of nice because I could see the roots forming. But at the same time, those roots wanted to be in darkness. That's why they're underground. And they were getting bombarded by sunlight and grow lights from all directions, all over the soil. And that really doesn't help those roots grow nice. So this year, I'm going to go ahead and do the right way and use red color cups. These are the standard. Everybody's got a million of these, party, beer pong cups, whatever. What happens is the roots grow down and they seek the water that's in the bottom cup. So the roots keep growing down and it gives them space to actually leave the cup a little bit. Usually you can be pretty good about it and be able to get them out of the cup safely. Worst case scenario, you cut the cup and you just take the whole root ball separately and you put that all in the ground at one time. Okay, so put on your gloves because you're using the razor. You can see we've got a cut in the cup right there. We're going to make 2 more on either side. Once again, take your razor and you make cut in here. Once you get it to that point, you might need to slip the knife under to cut the top of the triangle. And then once you have the spike of it like that, you can cut it off right at the top. Like so. So you just do that again and again all around the cup. We'll do it one more time. Cut once. Twice. Bend it up. Cut across. And there you go. So you got one more cup ready to go. 3 holes in it, ready and waiting for your soil. And I've already got my water cup here. I've dropped a pebble in it already. Boom. So we're going to be talking about our soil, and with our soil comes our fertilizer. First thing I wanted to talk about was I've got store-bought stuff that's going to be majority of what I use for like the seed trays, but for the cups that I'm going to be putting the tomatoes and the peppers into, I've actually got a mix of sifted soil from my own garden, and then a bit of cow manure compost in here as well. And then we're going to moisten this. We're going to add a little bit of extra fertilizer in the form of granular fertilizer, just to mix it in and make sure that every cup gets a little bit of it in there, because these are planning to basically supercharge our tomatoes and our peppers. They're also going to be inside a lot longer than some of the other things that we're planting today. So the idea is to give them a little bit of nutrients in their cups so they have a bit of extra time and extra effort they can be given. And if the weather doesn't turn out very nice, and if I end up having to keep them in a little later in May than I want to, then I'll be able to get away with that because there's extra nutrients for them in the soil. They won't run out quite so quickly. With the sifted soil, there's a very nice, very good soil. It's very loose of most big particles. So this particular fertilizer is a 3-4-4. So that means 3% nitrogen, 4% phosphorus, and 4% potassium or potash. Then we've also got calcium, 5%, and then we got magnesium and sulfur. And this is a pretty balanced, pretty nice, normal, regular old fertilizer. And we're going to add this to our soil so that way we're going to be able to make it just last a little bit longer this season. We're just going to go ahead and open this and pour in a pretty liberal amount. This is already pretty nutrient-rich soil, but I want to make sure that we're adding as much as we can to really get this going. So I'm going to add a nice big layer, and then I'm going to go ahead and stir this in as deeply as I can, all the way around. Push it up, get that in there. And in the end, this is all going to end up as either bed or garden dirt, so it's going to be helpful even along the line as we go. Now, this is still a bit dusty and a bit too not at all ready for putting seeds into. And I need this to be ready for my cups. So my next step is going to be add water. That's why we've got them in the sinks. So I'm going to go ahead and just spray a good amount of water in here, and then do the same thing. Mix it up, spray again, mix it up, spray again, until I feel like I've hit the right amount of moisture in this soil. You see how quickly it eats that up? You can barely see that water was in there even anymore. It's all nice and back to being dry, crumbly, dusty almost stuff. That means we ain't got enough water. We got to keep on adding. So now that I've got the cups cut, I've got 25 of them ready to go. I'm going to take one of these ones that has the holes cut out in it. You can see right here. So we're going to take that. We're going to take our dirt. I've got my trowel here so I can drop a good amount of dirt inside. And I'm going to press it down so I can get a lot of the dirt out, or a lot of the air pockets out of it. So that way there's no air pockets for the seeds. You only want to go about halfway up. You want to make sure that it's high enough to cover all your triangles. And once you got it like that, you're going to take your nail and you're going to make a little hole right there. And that's where you're going to drop your seed in. We're going to go ahead and fill up all these cups and we'll go from there. Okay, so I've got 12 cups, half filled with soil. I've got them just about ready to go. I've got my tomato seeds. I've got 4 different varieties. So I've got 4th of July. I've got San Marzano, which I have quite a bit of. And then I have beefsteak. And then my cherry tomatoes. So I've got my tomato seeds ready. I've also got a nail to make the hole for the seeds. The soil was all pre-moistened. After I've got them all planted, I am going to put some water in each cup and let it soak up into the soil. And then they're going to go into my greenhouse setup. I'm going to do this up close on the camera as well. But basically I take my nail and I just make a hole in the soil. You don't want it too deep, you just want to go a little bit down. I'm just kind of patting down some of the soil in here first. Make a nice clean hole. So I'm just going to put my nail down there, make a little hole, and then I'm going to take some of my San Marzano seeds, since we have it marked as a San Marzano. Tomato seeds are very small. So usually what I'll do is I'll drop about 3 down each hole. And then as they grow up, one of those 3 is going to be really strong, and that's going to be the one that gets to stay. So I'm going to grab another one, since I got a handful of seeds. The tomatoes are very fine, small seeds. So they don't need to get covered too much. You usually don't want to cover more than about twice the height of a seed. And just drop them in the hole. Better than I did just now. If you miss like I did, you can sort of chase them and get them over to your hole. As long as they get covered up and pressed down a little bit, they'll be okay. So there's my first beefsteak. We've got our next one. We're gonna make a little hole. And then drop the seeds in. Chase that one in. Get it nice and covered with your finger. There's number 2. So just like our tomatoes, we're going to start our peppers in a similar way. In this case, I'm going to be filling up the cups all the way to the top because the method of adding more dirt for tomatoes doesn't really help that much with the peppers. But I'm going to have 3 jalapeno peppers, and then we're going to have a dragonfly hybrid pepper. That's going to be like a sweet, multicolored, pretty cool pepper. We're also going to have a regular bell mix in here as well. And then I've got something interesting this year. This is a Mad Hatter hot hybrid. It's supposed to come out sweet, but it grows like a hotwood. And it comes out almost like similar looking to like a cherry pepper or like a Carolina Reaper type pepper. They're supposed to be very sweet, very cool. I thought I'd be a little fancy and go ahead and get those this year just because they sounded fun. I like jalapenos, man. They're good stuff. There we go. Now we're in the seed packet. So, same as the tomatoes. I'm just going to make a hole, get a few seeds out, And then drop 2 or 3 down the hole. And whoever comes up and is the strongest, that's who's going to stay. And now for something completely different, and yet the same. So I sort of invented this, at least I think I have. I haven't seen anybody else do it yet. But I took the double cup method and I applied it to planter trays. Normally these trays are used underneath planters to be able to catch water that comes out. But in this case, I went ahead and I cut triangles just like in cups in 3 spots on here. And then I've got a second tray that's uncut and it's got a couple of those same acrylic diamonds in them. So I'm going to be using those. And then these are older ones I did, and I actually used wire nuts in these ones. And same idea, the wire nuts, the pebbles, the stones, the gems, the marbles, whatever you use, it's just going to keep the first tray up higher a little bit so you can add water to the bottom. And then this water will wick up into the soil, and it also lets you bottom water as your seedlings start to develop. Now with onion seedlings, they make little shoots about yay tall or so. At that point, I'm going to take those and I'm going to add them to all my containers and any beds I have ready, and basically just take big bunches of them, and just like you do from the nursery where you order onion shoots, you get bundles of little green onions that then turn into nice big bulbing onions as long as you have the right type for your area. My area uses long day onions. There are 3 different types of onions. There's long day, intermediate day, and short day. So long day means that because the way that the angle of the sun hits here, our days get really long and then really short. So when the days get really long, around middle of summer, it signals the bulbs to start bulbing. And that makes them start to become nice onions. Now, you can make onions from sets, which are little, almost looks like dehydrated onions. Those ones are actually in their 2nd year. A lot of people swear by it. Personally, I take 1st year onions every time because 1st year onions bulb up quite a bit more in their 1st year, and they just tend to taste better. 2nd year onions, so onions are actually not perennial, not annual, but biannual. So they live for 2 years. The 1st year, they get as much plant mass and as much bulbing as possible. The 2nd year, they actually go to seed. So by harvesting and planting all in the 1st year, I'm guaranteeing that none of my onions are going to go to seed unless I want them to. All the double cup method stuff, I'm using the same soil. And more or less, just gonna pile a bunch of soil up in here. Okay, so we've got our 3 trays set up. They've got the double cup method going on, but in tray form. So we're gonna go ahead and scatter some seeds here. I've also got some labels set up so I can stick those right onto the edge of these so I can be able to tell them apart. I also have little toothpicks so I can make little flags for each of them. So we're going to start with my favorite one of this mix. That's our candy onion hybrid. This was a wonderful work last year. It did really good in my garden. Came out with really nice onions. They tasted really good in my pasta sauce. So this is my first thing to try to grow here. And onion seeds are very small, so they don't need to be buried deep. And I'm more or less just going to cast them over one whole area and then lightly sprinkle some more dirt on top to cover them. So we kind of want a whole lot of shoots all over the place. I'm just going to sort of tap them down a little bit just to make sure they got good contact with the soil and make sure they're not like stacked on top of each other really. And then I'm going to take just a little bit more dirt, a handful of work, and put that over the top and just to lightly cover. And I'm going to spread that all around. And then with a little bit of water, these seeds should start popping up pretty good, pretty fast. So this one was my candy apple onion seeds. And I'm going to make a little flag for them, so that way I know which ones they were. Then I can put that right into the soil. And now this one is ready to get put into first some water in the bottom tray and then into the greenhouse. So there's our candy onions, our Walla Walla onions, and now our sweet Spanish onions. I wanted to show where they go into my little greenhouse here. So I've got 6 lights hooked up. There's 2 on the 2 top rows, and then 1 single on the bottom rows. They're all linked together, and they're all on 1 timer. And then I've also got fans in there that are currently unplugged, but they also link together and go onto a different timer. So that way, throughout the day, periodically, as the seedlings start to grow, I can simulate some weather in there and be able to, have air moving around and make the seedlings a little bit stronger by getting airflow going through there. So this isn't really a perfect system. Obviously this is a greenhouse that a lot of people would use outside or on a deck. I'm using it here in the living room for my seedlings and putting it right next to this big picture window. So this gets a lot of afternoon sun. And then the lights are full spectrum growing lights. They're pretty cheap. I got them from a hardware store. And they do a pretty good job of simulating natural sunlight, at least for the seedlings in their first growing stage. Just wanted to check in, let you know how much we appreciate you stopping by. Your liking, commenting, and sharing is really what's greasing the wheels for us to keep making these videos. And I hope these are helpful for you, not just in your own gardens, but in your own life. The grocery store is not getting any cheaper. And we're all going to be a lot healthier and a little wealthier if we just make some crops at home. So I basically don't have much more to do today. I'm going to mark down my notes in the notebook, anything that I missed, marking down as I went. And then we're going to let these seeds grow up. Once they start developing and they start getting into little shoots and they start showing little first true leaves, we're going to be adding nutrients to the soil. We're going to be using liquid fertilizers. We're going to be watering them regularly. We're going to be taking care of them as much as we can. So that way when they're ready to go into the garden and the weather's warm enough, we'll be ready to go and we'll have a lot of produce as quickly as possible. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. I just wanted to mention we do have a t-shirt store and we're going to be adding some merchandise specifically based around Leila and I in the garden. Some of the funny things I've said. Puppy Girl's going to get her own shirt. We're going to be able to put that stuff out. I'm also going to look into trying to get some pet products in there as well. And if it would really help us if you could support the channel, like, share, subscribe, as well as purchase any of our merchandise. Pretty soon I'm going to have new editions of Dead Burger, including never before seen content on the special features. Dead Burger actually won an award. That's some of the stuff that's going to be in there is Q&As that you might not have been able to participate in. You might not have been there to see. I'm going to have those up so that way, there's information about how we made the movies. Also, our next short film is going to be for the monthly movie contest. They haven't announced the theme yet, so we're eagerly awaiting that. If you had any questions, I'm just an idiot with a shovel, but I'd be more than happy to give it a try. Go ahead and leave those down below, along with any comments, topics for future videos. And I hope you like, share, and subscribe. It'll really help the channel grow. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.